I think it immediately set out a situation where the risk was transferred very substantially onto the contractor. They actually took a major gamble when they tendered for a job. They didn't have sufficient information. It led then to massive acrimony, to conflict, to litigation, and built a massive industry then around people trying to secure their rights or trying to, win back sort of mistakes they made. So we've had, 8 or 9 years of this, and I think it became apparent to everybody in the end that they weren't right, that the system was broken.
These contracts were not actually good for the government and for the taxpayer, because what happened was they resulted in a huge drop in quality in the delivery of these contracts and of these projects that were being carried out under the new contract.
Hank Fogarty was chair of the below cost tendering committee that eventually, morphed into the PTC committee that Philip Crampton eventually chaired, and that took people from across the different sectors, from subcontractors and main contractors. Massive lot of work fed into it, and it's an area that politicians don't really fully understand, don't really want to get involved, so they left it up to their senior officials. And I think we got very good engagement as soon as the chair of the CCT changed, and David O'Brien, I think, was certainly very enlightened there. And then we had the new office, of course, the new government procurement office, and Paul Quinn there. So, a great lot of technical work done, a lot of behind the scenes stuff, a lot of engagement with the senior civil servants, and eventually we have the announcement that there is going to be a review of the performance of those contracts, and that was performed, with a big lot of professionals feeding in, that showed that they actually weren't working, that the system was broken and that it needed to be amended. And there was a high degree of enlightenment, but it took a lot of banging on doors, it took a lot of talk, it took a lot of effort, in particular by Martin Lang and by Sean Downey here, who headed up and were involved in that committee, to get the message through and to win over. And thankfully we've made a lot of progress in that area.
It is extremely frustrating dealing with the civil service in getting change. It doesn't come about quickly. It's a very, very slow, frustrating process. I think great credit is due to, I would say, particularly Philip Crampton, for the work he has done on that committee. Not alone internally keeping all our own members and our own associations in line, but also externally dealing with the stakeholders. He did a superb job, and as I said, I think it's our greatest achievement that I have seen in my days on the executive, to have got these changes in place, which I think are hugely significant.
A couple of changes have been introduced, which the first ones being the reintroduction of the bill of quantities, and then a different way of contracting specialist contractors. So back to nearly what we used to call nomination, they're called reserved specialists now. And those two changes alone are huge for us.
Yeah, look, it is the first step, and two very, very important steps. The next one is in terms of meat, and I think that's certainly going to be a big issue, that it's not just going to be price alone, that quality is going to be a major consideration. So we're engaged actively now in terms of the second step.
They were going to look at standard forms of contract. Maybe we look at NEC contracts or FIDIC contracts, that they're going to be looked at as well. Dispute resolution has to be. We're debating, is arbitration going to be, or litigation? We're going to have that debate.
I think that one of the big negative results of these contracts was that a huge amount of contractors and companies decided to opt out of doing public sector work, because there was they just felt the risk was too high. So they either downsized, went abroad, or concentrated on the small bit of FDI work that was out there. But and that's just simply not good enough, because our best talent, basically, and our best and most innovative companies were not participating in public sector work. So I think what you'll see now as a result of these changes coming in place, you'll see those companies back involved and engaged and tendering again for public sector work, which is vital, and I think will bring value back to the taxpayer, because you'll have more competition, and you'll see better quality output in the projects that are delivered.